Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
We report tonight on a war that has been raging for 2 years in the Middle East country of Yemen, with devastating consequences for its people. A fierce civil war has split the country in two. The government, backed by a Saudi-led coalition, controls the south of Yemen, while Houthi rebels, backed by Iran, control the capital and the north of the country. Yemen is now on the brink of famine and has become a breeding ground for disease. Cholera has swept the country, with nearly 2,000 deaths since the outbreak began in April. The situation there is now described as the world's greatest humanitarian crisis. Access for international journalists is very rare, but our Middle East correspondent Orla Guerin, with her producer Nicola Karim and cameraman Nico Hameyon, have got in. They've sent this report from Aden and a warning: there are distressing images of suffering children throughout.
We crossed the Red Sea to reach Yemen, past the sunken wreckage of a hidden war. This was the only way to the port city of Aden. The Saudi-led coalition, which is bombing the country, grounded the UN plane due to fly us in. And this is the kind of suffering they don't want the world to see. Rassam El-Wasabi is 11. He's one of many children wasting away across the country. Since the war, malnutrition rates have soared. Hunger is menacing this nation, from the very old to the very young. Like Hussein Mazen Hussein, who fights for every breath. The United Nations says an entire generation is being starved and crippled, and famine is looming. In a ward nearby, another threat. A desperate rush to save Abdullah Mohammed Salem, who came in with no pulse. They tried to squeeze fluid and life back into his veins. He's one victim of an epidemic ravaging Yemen, cholera, and it's the worst outbreak in history. There's now a perfect breeding ground for disease because sanitation services have broken down. Abdullah's son, Ahmed, has a message for those in power who are busy waging war. Deal with the sewage, he says, and clean the streets. Mosquitoes and flies are everywhere, causing illness. We are demanding that everyone who claims to be our leader should just care about the people. Instead, they are dying of cholera at the rate of about 1 every hour, another outcome of a brutal conflict.
This hospital alone receives about 100 new cholera cases every day. Those who get help recover quickly, within hours. But many in Yemen are dying needlessly because they can't get the most basic treatment. After more than 2 years of war, half the health facilities in the country aren't functioning.
Like much else in the Arab world's poorest nation, an ancient civilization with new battle scars. The Presidential Guard mans checkpoints in Aden, but the Yemeni president is seldom seen. He was forced to flee by Houthi rebels. That's when his allies, the Saudis, stepped in. Their bombing campaign has not restored his authority. But it has destroyed hospitals, schools and homes like that of the Awal family. Their house was hit by 2 airstrikes as the coalition targeted Houthi fighters nearby. Sanad Awal tells us 2 years on, the extended family of 30 are among the forgotten victims of this war. Some of the family still live right here in the ruins, with no help, they say, except from God. But civilians here have been under fire from both sides. We met Adel and her children waiting for food aid. 10-year-old Imad used to love football before he was hit by a Houthi shell. I brought the kids into the house, she told us, and asked them to stay inside. They were in the living room when they were hit. He lost both legs immediately. Since then, she says, Imad and her other children have never been the same. They have deep psychological wounds, as well as physical ones. Most of all, it is Yemen's children, like 10-month-old Ahmed, who are paying the price here. The conflict has reached a stalemate. International diplomacy has failed, and nowhere in the world are more lives at stake. Orla Gearan, BBC News, Aden.
And that was Orla Gearan and her team with a special report from inside Yemen, a country ravaged by war and disease.